So yeah, I just recently hit my 10-year milestone when it comes to making games, going all the way back to 2013 and to now 2023. But what comes in between that? You know, what did I learn and create along the way? I'm sure that's why all of you are here. I never really cared for the visual side of things. I mainly focused on like the back end and just technical stuff. I spent most of my time learning about networking, artificial intelligence, rapid prototyping, and I got way too good at that. Like way too good. You know, just generally improving my code architecture and kind of just learning what the best way to do things are. So as you can expect, my games are not, they're not all that flashy. They don't look too good. But that doesn't mean that I strictly focused on those things alone. For example, my sound design has improved immensely over the past 10 years. My animating has gotten way better. And I think I found a good style that I like to stick to in 3D modeling for my games. With all that being said, let's just jump straight into it, starting in 2013. For the first few years, I honestly don't have much footage of the games I made. Most of them have been lost to time. However, there are some remnants, such as a super intense, detailed video of me blowing up explosive barrels I made, or my first animation that I made in Blender that utilized an armature and rigging, and it looks like dog shit. 2014 saw a little more activity from me. I started my networking journey here, taking my first steps with Unity's UNet. However, UNet didn't end up being my main networking solution. It very quickly got replaced, and I'm sure you know why. I also experimented with the wave-based zombie survival shooter akin to Nazi zombies, but this project surprisingly did not go anywhere, and the only remaining piece of it is this really, really bad quality video. 2015 is more of the same, not much activity, more networking. This year I switched over to a networking solution called PUN, or Photon Unity Networking. This became my main networking solution for the years to come, and I still use it to this day. It's amazing. Utilizing this wonderful, magical thing known as PUN, I started developing a multiplayer FPS that I also wanted to be an MMO, kind of like Destiny, but I'm sure, as you can imagine, that did not happen in any capacity at all. I don't know what I was thinking at that time. How old was I? What, 14? Not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. There were a few different classes to choose from, a few different weapons, and 1 or 2 maps, and I worked on it for like a month or two, just about, but then I decided that it was time to move on to a different project.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the second update.
2016. Oh boy, this year it's wild. 2016 was basically when I started to polish my games a lot more, even though they're still really bad. Almost every aspect improved. I finally learned how to rig and animate first-person models. I made quite a few janky reload animations, but that was all part of the learning process, right? But in the midst of all of this, I took a break to work on a game for Ludum Dare 36, where the theme was ancient technology. A friend of mine and I made a dungeon crawler in 72 hours for Ludum Dare, where he made all the artwork and music and I did the rest. It was a really fun project overall, but it was very broken and unstable, but that is totally my fault. This game is programmed so horribly. The last thing I really did in 2016 was work on a multiplayer alien-inspired FPS on and off throughout the year, and even revamping it at one point. And this game idea is a reoccurring theme in this video. You'll soon find out. 2017 was a fun year. One of the first things I did was experiment with a split-screen dungeon crawler with randomly generated levels and some different weapons and enemies. Unfortunately though, whatever I was doing back then for controller support does not work now. My Xbox One controller does not really work well with it. Regardless though, the game was fun to play with people while I was working on it. Obviously, I'm not playing it with anybody now. I don't know why they want to play this game that's like, what, 7 years old? Soon after, I entered another Ludum Dare, and I made an FPS game where you play as plastic army men. It was pretty fun, although I didn't have enough time to finish it, and it was unbelievably simple and also not very polished. After Ludum Dare, I made an offline bots-only FPS titled Offline Paintball 3D. This game had some pretty cool AI. They would chat with the player depending on what you said. They would react to their environment. They would play certain sound effects depending on what was happening to them. It was honestly a lot of fun to mess around with and just play. The AI itself was suboptimal, but thankfully, the funny nature of the bots on their own made up for it completely.
Cover me, I'm reloading! We're spotted! Go now! Take him out! Double kill.
That alone probably saved the game. I only worked in this game for a few weeks before, you know, I eventually abandoned it, as you do. But I did return a little bit later to add a few small things. Further into the year, I made a Nazi zombies clone in about 3 days. It only featured like 5 weapons and a few perks, but it was met with some pretty decent praise on GameJolt and YouTube. It was pretty fun to make, but it was held together by like off-brand duct tape that had been rotting in the sun for like 3 years. It was really poorly made. It was so hard to expand anything in it. It was so hard to make anything new. I don't know what I was on when I made that game, but it was not good stuff. I'll tell you that much. Okay. So if 2016 was a wild year, 2018 was like 2016 but tenfold. It was crazy. This is when I really started like get comfortable making games, and then I realized that the more I learn, the more polished my games are gonna be. So I just started learning like everything left and right. I started off by recreating the inventory system from Resident Evil 4, and then I took a shot at replicating the inventory from Escape from Tarkov with a little bit of success, but not too much. Then I did some smaller stuff, like more reload animations. A small FPS game where you're like a sick dude in a wild western setting and go around and shoot guys. And this was really the year where I started making videos geared towards my game development experiences, like all the stuff I'd made, such as my Kazoo Kid horror game. And that video's on my channel if you want to go watch it. It's pretty bad, but if you want to watch it, it's up there. One of the last smaller things I did in 2018 was add a flamethrower to my paintball game, which was pretty cool. Not much to say there, just really fun. I finished up the year with 2 different FPS games, both of which were like foundations for the current FPS system that I use. I don't have much footage of either, but here's a little footage that I do have of them. 2019 was definitely like the catalyst for everything I do in my games now. I don't know what happened to me this year, but I stepped up my game in like every single department tremendously. 2 different small horror experiences, both very polished, and honestly, one of them was pretty much just completely stolen from Amnesia, but we don't talk about that. I made the FPS game where my foundation for my current FPS games comes from. The game in question I titled 2019 FPS. Very innovative, I know. It taught me so much about networking, animation, game feel, gunplay, user interfaces, like everything. I made a toothpaste guy? Is this in the script? Yeah, for some reason, I went on a small kick where I learned how to export Half-Life 1 models into Blender and then into Unity. I made a little, like, short concepts with them, but let's just move on. Let's just move on. 2 different underwater prototypes. Yeah, 2, that's right. Another FPS game with doors. I know, that's absolutely crazy. And finally, I made a post-mortem of my paintball game. Yeah, I finally pulled the plug on it. The video is up on my channel if you want to watch it there, so I won't talk about it much. All right, there's so much to talk about from 2020 all the way to 2023, so let's just get straight into it, I guess. 2020 was when I had like 3 main crazes in gaming that really stuck with me for a while. The first one being underwater survival games, Sub Rosa, funnily enough, and then Endless Runners. I started this year off with a game I promptly titled Sub Rosa Clone.
Come take a nice trip in my car with me.
This game was only developed over about the course of a week, so there really isn't any gameplay to it, but I did learn about car physics and how bad the default wheel collider is in Unity. I learned how to implement voice chat.
You're a meanie. You're a bully. You're a bully.
I started to improve my networking code, aiming for it to be more performant. Pretty much it for that game, honestly. So the next part of the year, I once again entered into Ludum Dare with the theme this time being Keep It Alive. I developed The Gentleman for the compo. The compo is where you develop a game in 48 hours and you have to make all the assets by yourself. It's stressful, honestly not worth it, but it is fun. All right, now look, I don't want to flex here. I don't want to be that guy, but I did score very, very high with this game when the event ended. This is definitely the project that I take the most pride in out of all of these in this video, and I only improved it over the next few years, just adding a ton of content. I made a mobile port, I added tons of different items, there's motorcycles, Granny now sees demons. Yeah, there's a lot. That's my favorite one though. Granny seeing demons it makes me happy. I still haven't finished The Gentleman though, and I doubt I ever will, honestly. It just doesn't seem like a project I really want to work on. I ended this year off with my most comprehensive, complex, and unique survival game to date. It was like an underwater survival horror thing inspired by Subnautica in the forest. I did make a lot of progress on it, but eventually I realized it was way too ambitious, so I just scrapped it. I think my biggest accomplishment in this project was definitely the sound design. It is without a doubt the most time I spent on sound design in any project overall. 2021 was a quiet year. I didn't have a lot of time to work on games this year, but I did update The Gentleman a little bit. I added some new content, not too much. I returned to the alien survival horror game I was talking about earlier, but this time with much more polish and overall quality. The project didn't get too far, but it was totally functional. I didn't ever do any playtests with it though, but everything worked. It was pretty fun. Next, I decided to experiment with A-Star Pathfinding, and I made another game about army men, except this time you're like the size of real humans. That's crazy. And at one point, I actually managed to get up to 128 bots without any performance hit, which was fun. Just very excessive. Then I was like, okay, it's been 7 years, so I'm gonna revisit UNet. But then I found out UNet was deprecated, so I found out about Mirrored, which is pretty much just UNet, but like actually good. Using Mirror, I made my most detailed and fun FPS yet with a ton of different weapons, fun movement, really satisfying guns and gameplay. The project also made me love and hate Mirror. I praise it for how versatile it is, and how well it works, but I also curse it for how poorly it's documented and how all of the error messages don't mean anything. But I digress. Mirror is a really good multiplayer asset, and I don't regret learning it at all. Around this time, I also started making more music for my games, and the music you're listening to right now I actually made for The Gentleman a while back, believe it or not. 2022 is when I started to really hone in on what I was good at, which is rapid prototyping. The first time I hit that play mode button, I was walking around with chicken right there. It felt like I was part of the camera crew for Walk with Dinosaurs, bro. I'll tell you, man, he's big. I think I got really good at rapid prototyping on accident. I think it was just because I couldn't finish any of my games. With that being said, though, most of my games, like 99% of them, are made within like a week or two, and then after that, it's rare for them to ever see the light of day again. They kind of just sit there in my folder and collect dust. I don't ever touch them again. Anyways, I started 2022 by learning how to implement inverse kinematics into Unity, and actually made 2 videos on it, so go watch those if you want to know more about it. After that, I threw together a small prototype that completely ripped off the LiDAR add-on for Garry's Mod in about 2 days, which was fun. This year, I got really curious about voxel terrain and wanted to learn how to write code that would generate terrain based on it. And after I learned how to do it, I combined it with my previous underwater survival game idea. But eventually this game fell flat due to my lack of knowledge in like multi-threading and optimizing voxels and all that. And due to that, the terrain generation in this game is super slow, like very, very slow, like 5 FPS kind of slow. But when this game is cool, it's really cool. Like, have you ever seen an underwater survival horror voxel game like this? I sure haven't. I assume I'll come back to this project. It's probably inevitable at this point, but I honestly have no idea. While still on my survival game craze, I delved super deep into making this dinosaur survival game. This project featured a lot of complex systems, but unfortunately, it didn't ever get too far, like in the grand scheme of things in terms of gameplay or anything like that. I even copied Minecraft's crafting system though. It creatively inspired me, but it was really fun to make regardless. It taught me a lot about a lot of things. And the T-Rex in this game is utterly terrifying. I must say, I spent so long working on all the stuff that he uses to get him to look like this. You don't want to know how long it took me to get him looking this good. 2023. This year is pretty much just about my ongoing projects because there are a few of them. The first one is a multiplayer Vietnam FPS game thing inspired by Rising Storm 2 Vietnam and Insurgency a little bit. I made really good progress with this game so far and I plan to continue it sometime this year. I'm not really sure when. And stemming off that project, I made a small little proof of concept about being a caveman where your goal is to hunt down dinosaurs. This little experiment was pretty much almost entirely inspired by the Hunter Primal. I took a few little notes from Stomping Lands, but not really that much. I haven't had much time to work on it, but I really want to return to the idea because I think it's really cool. The final project I'll mention in this video is my sci-fi horror FPS roguelite that I'm working on, which is a total mouthful. Currently it features completely procedurally generated levels, the rooms get randomly furnished, aliens aware of like everything, sound, light, you name it. They're pretty smart in general. This project alone has taught me so much about procedural generation and exposed me to a lot of the tactics and techniques that a lot of developers use to go about implementing procedural generation in their game and just basically making it feel alive. I've learned a lot from this project. If you got this far in the video, I'm assuming you liked it, so if you don't mind clicking the like button, I would appreciate it. But hey, no pressure. If you don't do it, I'm not gonna hate you. I might be a little upset at you, but I'm not gonna hate you, alright? But anyways, thank you for watching this little video and coming along with a short little journey with me. It was a lot of fun to record and just look back on all my games. So, see ya.